say that Tasmania's west coast was inhospitable would be an understatement. Comprising a storm-beaten coastline and razorback ridges inundated by up to 100 inches of rain per annum, the west coast was the type of place avoided by your average person. Behind me stands what remains of Mount Bischoff, site of the first major mineral find on Tasmania's west coast. Discovered by the prospector James Philosopher Smith in 1871, the mine had a twofold effect. It brought much-needed revenue into the state's coffers, and it focused attention on the west coast as a possible source of unlimited mineral wealth. Little did Philosopher Smith realise that his discovery would prove to be one of the richest tin mines in the world. Adjoining the new mineral discovery was the Van Diemen's Land Company. Founded by London investors, the company owned a vast 210,000 acres. Working on the premise that it's better to get a little rather than nothing at all, the company built a horse-drawn wooden tramway connecting the mining area to the port of Burnie on Emu Bay. Opened in 1878, the original tramway went to the boundary of a wily farmer named Russ. From there, passengers trudged the final 4 kilometres through mud and slush to Waratah, the new boom town. 1884 saw the tramway taken over by the Emu Bay and Mount Bischoff Railway Company, which set about building a new steel line directly to Waratah. In 1897, the company once again changed hands, this time becoming the Emu Bay Railway Company. Today, the Emu Bay Railway still operates, carting Mount Lyell ores from Melba Siding to Burnie. Even though the Van Diemen Land Company opened up the rugged wilderness and made tin mining possible, it wasn't until 1965 that shareholders received their first dividends. Following the Mount Bischoff find, people from all walks of life flocked to the west coast to make their fortune. Of the numerous mineral discoveries, 2 in particular stand out. The one at Mount Lyell, the other at Xion. Apart from the large mineral deposits, they're remembered for the myriad of railways and tramways that were spawned to service the mining industry. Galena was discovered at Xion in 1882, but it wasn't until 1891 that mining began in earnest. At its zenith, Xion, a silver-lead mining town, boasted a working population of 10,000. The boggy nature of the land made road construction next to impossible. So to overcome that obstacle, a network of railways and tramways was built to serve the town. 10 in and around Xion, 19 to the outlying areas. Trams would rumble up and down the 2 or 3-foot-6 track, stopping at stalls, depositing their goods and moving on. It was one of the most intricate systems of narrow-gauge tramways existing in Tasmania. The railways of Xion had hardly settled down to regular operations when a rail tragedy made it the focus of the state's attention. On the morning of May 6, 1899, an English-built locomotive was shunting in the rail yards prior to going on a passenger run when it exploded. The force of the explosion was such that pieces of the engine were found in adjoining backyards. A coroner's inquiry was conducted, but even this couldn't explain the mystery of the explosion. Of all the mines that operated on the west coast, Mount Lyell would have to be the richest and longest worked. Originally discovered in 1883, the mine was a rich source of copper, silver and gold. The mineral wealth was such that 2 competing railways were built to transport the rich metals to the coast. Of the 2 lines, the first to be built was the Mount Lyell Company line. Beginning operations in 1896, the line carried concentrates from Queenstown to the point of shipment at Strawn Harbour. The unique feature of this line is that it employed the Abt system of locomotion. Named after the German national who invented it, the Abt was invented specifically to help pull the trains up the very steep gradients. The system consisted of a 3rd-toothed rail laid between the ordinary rails. Beneath the locomotive was a cogged wheel. When lowered, the teeth of the wheel and line would mesh, thereby giving the train the extra leverage necessary to haul its load up the steep inclines. The other line to be developed was the North Mount Lyell Railway. Opened in 1900, it ran from the Kelly Basin to Linda Station. With both lines competing for the cartage of ore, a railway war erupted that lasted for 3 years. When the dust had settled, it was found that both companies were in financial difficulties. A merger was proposed, and the new Mount Lyell Mining and Railway Company Limited was formed. This company took over all cartage operations until its closure in 1963. For all of the railways and tramways that existed on the west coast, a trip to Hobart from Queenstown would take up to 3 days and required 6 train changes. By comparison, it was quicker and easier at that time to cross the Bass Strait and travel to Melbourne. Because of the extent of interstate trade that existed between the west coast and Melbourne, people in the business community considered the west coast to be an unofficial province of Victoria. So, after all these years of pioneering activity, what's left of the railways and the mines they served? Of the numerous mines that dotted the west coast, Mount Lyell is still operating, though there are signs that its days are numbered. Perhaps its future lies in becoming a living museum for curious tourists to wander through. And of all the railways that once existed on the west coast, the Emu Bay line is the sole operating reminder of when rails rolled back yet another of Tasmania's frontiers.
I'm no millionaire, but I'm not the type to care.